Welcome to Uranian Streams. Today, our episode is uncovering logos of astrology. In other words, the symbols that shapeshift our consciousness. And this talk is inspired by how deeply embedded many of the common symbols that surround us are actually connected to astrology and to ancient deities and to ancient wisdom. And this isn't just a mere coincidence, but it's actually, they're used because of the power that they hold. There's an old quote from Confucius that says, "The world is not run by words or laws, but by signs and symbols." And we might also include number in that because number and then these glyphs of astrology are our most primordial messengers, and they message our subconsciousness, and it's something that can be used in a manipulative way or a way to sell us something. And sometimes that's not always a product, it's an idea or an emotion or a feeling, right? And we don't always have consent for this consumption of images. They're shown, they're flashed to us, and we're taking them in, and we don't necessarily even know how they're affecting us. So this talk is really to empower those to open their eyes to a new level of seeing. And that way you're no longer manipulated by some of these images, but you have a deeper understanding of their meaning and their symbolism. So first, Mario's going to introduce just the basics of
Well, I
what.
want to touch upon what I want to also do my intro as well.
Go for it.
So, um, standing on what Molly talked about, I'm gonna also introduce the layer of seeing also our world, or rather, understanding it as a mirror of our inner will. In other words, as a journey to find the holy grail of the real, of what's true in our reality. Because we have so many Neptunian screens in front of us with these images and these symbols and signs, as Molly noted, Confucius spoke of, which is swaying the vibrational current of this mirror that we're living in, this mirror world. And it is for us, it is our purpose incarnating in the meat here in the flesh, here in this reality or irreality, to discern what is actually real and what is not. And so we're almost journeying through layers and layers and layers of falsity and illusion through these Neptunian screens to find the source of what is real, what we are truly mirroring, what our inner nature is mirroring, not just, as Molly spoke about, the surface directionals, which is about spiritualizing commodification and just selling us mundane products in spiritual ways. And so we're going to start. We don't have it up on the screen here, but you'll see these symbols here. If you look at the planetary glyphs we have on the left, as Molly's pointing it out, you'll notice there's three to four very prevalent geometric shapes. The first is the circle. You see the circle on a lot of these different planetary glyphs, which represents the journey, the journey, the constant, the circular, the transforming journey of life. You'll notice the dot in the middle of the sun, the spark, the divine spark of life. You'll notice there's also a lot of crosses or X's, which symbolize the two realms, the two-dimensional realm of matter, where we're all incarnating on. And you'll notice half circles as well.
Crescents, yeah.
Crescents, yeah, which represent the personality manifesting through the will of the spirit. And we don't have the moon glyph there, so we don't quite see it. And then obviously with Earth, you have the circle with the cross in the middle, which is the plane we're all on.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the main symbols to watch for. And these symbols will appear throughout our presentation. And we won't always point them out, but you'll see this in the imagery of the images that we present, and it'll be the same thing on the right hand side with the astrological glyphs. Taurus with the horns that appears everywhere. The Aquarian waves appears everywhere, sometimes halfway, sometimes hidden. Same with all these
Mhm.
symbols. Sometimes they're hidden. You have to find them.
Sometimes they're
Um,
flipped, they're reversed, or
reversed,
literally
right?
subverted. Sometimes mirrored, sometimes, yeah,
Upside
inverted.
down, right? Sometimes clouded, so you can't see it clearly. Every possible permutation you can imagine, you can frame it in. And Molly, do you want to add anything before we go to the next slide?
Well, yeah, these are just, to get your eyes, I guess, accustomed to what we're relating these logos or these images we're going to show you to. And for those who are well versed in astrology, these will be quite familiar. But for those who aren't, it's definitely helpful to see at least the glyphs also of the signs, because most people know the animals or the images associated with each, but these are actually how it'll be like annotated on a birth chart, or in an astrology software. And it's a shorthand, these to me are like, they're like hieroglyphs, right? It's like a symbol like this is a more immediate way for your brain to take in a whole narrative, a whole story really, and a host of meaning without having to use words. It's quicker, it's more immediate. So yeah, it's just to get accustomed to and like you said, um, yeah, the crescent of the soul, or the moon, the personality, the mind, the circle of spirit, and the cross of matter. Yeah, these are the motifs that get rearranged to make the planetary glyphs.
And just to add, even if you're familiar with astrology signs, see this anew, right? Like a child, see it all anew, so you can begin to see it in the symbols around you. If this kind of seeing interests you, I mean, this type of seeing is you penetrating this Neptunian realm and seeing things for what they are, to how they're really being presented.
Absolutely. That being said, I guess I'll just get into our examples. Starting with the most obvious way to start, with the sun, the center of our solar system. And in case it wasn't obvious in the glyph, see how the sun is the center of the solar system? The glyph literally is just kind of conveying that in a very simple, rudimentary way. But we also see this in this image. Is that familiar?
We're all very familiar with. I mean, that beams outward in the middle of cities. It's so large. It's a big symbol on a big block stone, and it's what is it? The degradation of the spirit. First off, it's in red. I mean, red in alchemy is a little different, but in astrology, in vibrational colors, it's the heaviest frequency. And so
The
that would
root
be
root
first
chakra,
chakra.
right? Root
Root chakra, right?
chakra.
If we look at it through the chakras, it's the first chakra. It's the root. It's keeping our central gravity very low and
Mm.
stuck,
Dense.
right? And that's our target. And it's becoming a target, right? They're targeting the self, the soul, right? It's targeting our own spirit, drowning it in consumerism. Look at these images. Look at how they cover parts of this sole purpose of the sun, which is the sole purpose of life, of why we're here and who we're here to be, the sun in our astrology chart. And as is conveyed in these images, it's that's all for us to purchase that symbol within ourselves, accompanied with the need to purchase something.
To be a
So
complete soul, right? To get
yeah,
be
and
to complete.
instead of finding completion and sitting in our body and feeling what we feel through some kind of somatic awareness of our different parts and emotions and self that's happening, instead of being aware of our planets inside and how they're moving within, this is moving the emphasis, the focus to the outer world. That's the place we want to go to. We just hit the target, right? Now we're gonna go in and consume.
And it's interesting because like that color red is used so much because of what we're talking about. Like it brings you more into the like primal, like sexual, almost like I need this for security. I need this, it's that feeling like you need when, and that's what the
Urgency.
red
Yeah.
evokes. Yeah,
An urgency.
urgency. We'll see this color like so frequently. Um, the next one I want to talk about is Mercury, or conveniently right next to the sun. And as we mentioned, it's the crescent of the soul over the circle of spirit on top of the cross of matter. Now, this is significant because 3 is the number of Mercury or Hermes, triskrate Hermes. And it's a number that is used so commonly just in our society, the way it's even set up with 3 classes, quote unquote, 3 economic classes. And there's like so many ways we see 3 come out in our world. If you start paying attention to it, 3 things are divided into like 3 tiers a lot. And the upper, middle, and lower worlds, you could say,
That's
is
good.
another way to think of it. And so, what is Mercury though? Like, let's really think about it. It's communication, it's commerce, well, banking, right? And transportation. These are kind of the things that are under the domain of Mercury. And so you'll see 3 used a lot, literally in this car brand, which is, happens to be called Mercury. It's no coincidence they have the 3 stripes as the logo here. Nike, or sorry, Adidas. Nike is more like Saturn, but Adidas, we have the 3 stripes here. It's, a running shoe, an athletic shoe. And here's Hermes. He has his helmet. He also has like a chariot in some imagery. He's a messenger of the
Wings on the
gods.
helmet. Yeah.
Go ahead.
The wings on the helmet,
Yeah.
right? Getting him as fast as he can go to from here to there, spreading messages.
So the 3 comes up quite a bit in branding and logos, and especially in ads or banks, because he rules commerce. And we'll see it in this logo for PNC Bank, and you might be like, well, what are you talking about? But if you look at the logo, it's this triangle that has these 3 parts to it. And that's where it gets kind of like you do have to bring number in, because some of the time you might take this for granted. Like, it doesn't look like much. It's like, what is the logo that just says PNC Bank, right? But you have to really like adjust your eye to like what they're doing. They're bringing the 3 in. We also see it with Morgan Stanley. I'm going to move where we're headed. Morgan Stanley, they put a little triangle right there. The brand is just the name, but then they inserted this triangle, and interestingly, it's pointed northeast, which is the general direction for financial success in Feng Shui. So it's interesting, right? And then we see this Merchants and Marine Bank. They have, kind of this 3-part logo. And they're even called Merchants and Marine, like maritime, sailing. There's a lot of overlaps with current sea and sea navigation. And then the Department of Transportation utilizes, whoops, let me go back. The Department of Transportation utilizes this 3-part to its branding.
And we don't have the symbol of this up, but the Grand Central Station in New York has Mercury and a statue on top, along with Hercules and Minerva. And that's the Grand Central Station. That's where all commerce occurs, all
Wow.
travel occurs.
Major hub.
Yeah, it's a major hub. And there's a video on YouTube, probably still up, which goes into that, goes in detail of the symbols of the astrological meanings of those 3 statues above the Grand Central Station.
That's a great video. I love that one. Somewhat inspired this video. Mars, we see this symbol so much because we'll see it on a restroom even, right? It's a masculine, energetic. It's the stand-in actually of just the symbol for male, which is very interesting. It's the planet of aggression. It's the planet of impulse, of drive, of maybe conquering. And interestingly
The
enough, we see it in NASA. I mean, it's one of those things where I was just like, wait a second, that kind of looks like the glyph for Mars. And this is like an earlier one in the beginning, in the middle, and then we kind of have that. And it's where is NASA really headed? Like, what are they trying to colonize? Which planet?
or which plane? I mean, if we think about it, even your first image of the solar system, you could also look at it as a crater. If we get into crater Earth ideas or flat Earth ideas, like it's still the center. It's still the idea that there's a center and something is going out. I mean, the symbol of Mars is also the symbol of the spirit held down by matter. So this is the
Mm,
spirit journeying, but still in matter. So if is there really an outer space? There's certainly an inner space, which is our sense of ourselves, but they want us to focus outside of that.
right. It's
Thus,
like,
the direction in the science fiction created idea that there is an outer space, right? We don't.
well, I don't know if I subscribe to all that.
We're not going
I
to get into the veracity of that, but right, but there's a reason why the focus is on this kind of fictional representation for the last 100 years of some kind of outer,
the next
space.
frontier, right? That's kind of the
Hmm.
phrase, the next frontier. Instead of all the work we could be doing on this planet, right? On planet Earth, it's like, oh, let's conquer the next frontier. Like you said, it's very young. It's very like, let me go conquer, colonize. It's an aggressive energy. And it's hasty, it's impulsive. It's not necessarily it's the opposite of Venus, which would be that stillness, that contemplation, right?
That word too, I think Tsarian or someone else went over it in a presentation, what that means, the Nasa in other languages. Or like to
Oh,
reverse it, we could reverse it asan. You know what I mean? What does that mean?
awesome.
Maybe it means something in another language, right? In one of the seven sacred languages. Um, that's how that's how this decoding kind of works in a sense. And then
Right.
start looking at NASA patches. Like go online, look at all the different NASA patches or military patches, and you'll see just like layers and layers of different symbolism. It's fascinating.
Mm. It is. I think you brought up a great point. We're focusing on the symbols, but the words, often they're phonetic, often they're abbreviations or acronyms, sometimes they're anagrams, sometimes they're roots of words that aren't in our language. So it's
Mhm.
meaningless to us, but it's actually very significant. And I kind of want to
Even
do
even the
homework.
phonemes, when they use acronyms, even the phonemes, right? Like just three
Mm,
little letters, right?
definitely.
It's deep, deep meaning.
Totally. Absolutely. This is kind of on the same wavelength of Mars. This is actually the glyph for the North Node, or Rahu is what they call it in Vedic astrology. It's also the Omega symbol. So those who aren't really super into astrology or don't know that much might just be like, oh, that's the Omega symbol. The Omega is the last letter of the Greek alphabet. So there's significance there because it denotes like an endpoint, right? And in Western astrology, we call it the North Node. It's like where our soul is trying to arrive at. In Vedic thought, it is Rahu, which actually is considered a shadow or demonic planet in in Vedic astrology, meaning it has this kind of connotation of being a hungry ghost, of being where we are maybe ruthless or relentless in a way, where we have hurdles and where we might be obsessed in some sense because we're like trying to attain this so badly. Um, so I found it interesting because when I really thought about it as also representing Omega, the last letter of the Greek alphabet, I'm thinking we see this not only just in astrology, but you see it in physics. It represents Ohm, which is it's like a measurement of electrical resistance. We see it to mark a date of death. So sometimes you might see it like on a obituary or like a grave marker to mark when someone has died or maybe completed their soul's cycle this round. And it has a lot of like I said, association with like obsession or restlessness and also materialism. So, not surprisingly, it's used in, in ads and it's used in branding. And so, one of the you know, anyone watching knows this company. This is called Lululemon, and they that name itself has a lot of significance because it some of the sounds in that name are associated with Aries nakshatras or Mars ruled nakshatras, and this symbol is on athletic wear, and it's a billion-dollar company. I mean, this company sells yoga pants that are like $200 for leggings or whatever. And it's kind of a status symbol, it's like branded on the butt or like the ankle of these athletic pants. And it's kind of become somewhat of like a status symbol. When I was doing this research, I was just trying to get images of the logo, and someone had like a whole article of like how to spot a fake like Lululemon versus like a real one. And they were like analyzing the stitching of the logo. It's like, who cares? I mean, but that's what I mean. It's more than just like, it's become enough of like a status symbol. It's not just like, oh, it's an athletic brand. Like many of these brands, they become symbolic of your wealth or your social status as well, which is really interesting. And, it's power, right? I think of Rahu has no end, Mars and Scorpio, or Mars, Scorpio, Pluto, all these planets that are used most commonly, they represent power. And this is another company, Omega, which obviously utilizes the Omega symbol, the Rahu symbol. And these are the watch of astronauts. That's kind of how they branded themselves. It's like it was the first watch in space. And significant moments, like the official timekeeper of the Olympics, which we'll get into the 5 rings. That's significant too. 5. We choose to go to the moon. JFK wore this watch. It's like Bond wears it. The Olympic athletes wear it. They want you to know it's like powerful. Speaking on these rings of the Olympics, so the 5 is significant because it's a number that represents spiritual power of transcendence, if you will. And so you see 5 used commonly as well. Any thoughts on this, Mario? The Rahu North Node Omega symbol?
No, that's kind of a new one for me. I mean, obviously I've seen the symbol and I know it's the North Node symbol. As far as its utilization in Vedic astrology, I didn't realize it was also, well, yeah, of course, but I didn't make the connection with it being a Rahu symbol. But Rahu, the symbol we're commonly shown when we study Vedic astrology is the severed head, right? So it is the hungry
Yeah.
ghost looking for its completion, looking for the body, right?
But
That gives us
he's immortal too. Part of that mythos is that
this is like fits so well with like the inner dimensional kind of beings that attempt to take over our bodies on this realm. If one looks at it that way, right? Through
exactly, yeah.
just
So it's
the ghosts that interfere in our realm, and attempt to get into our bodies when we leave it.
yes, in
Uh,
this kind of penultimate moment, meaning like it's this timekeeper of like, the Olympic timing, the time of someone's death, it's like
yeah,
this
right. In the
powerful
relationship to
image,
death, right? Yeah, that's
your
and then
fate.
why the relation of death to space to the moon? It's almost like the symbolism of interplanetary travel is a type of death. As I see it, when I look at all the symbols, right? It's black. The concept of space is black. The concept of the moon is a new frontier. And the ideas, and like for example, in Genesis in the Bible, is that there's the firmament, which is the dome above us, and then beyond the firmament are the waters of heaven, or the waters above, which is the same thing. A human spirit in a body cannot survive the waters. So it's a transcension, it's a death of the physical body, of the spirit into a different form. So
Hmm.
fascinating stuff.
It is fascinating. I mean, this was one that I was reflecting on that logo because I was literally like, someone had those like the pants on, and I was looking at it, and I was with a friend who does astrology, and I was like, oh, and then we were like Rahu, we were talking about Vedic astrology, and then I told them, oh, that company's called Lululemon, and they were like, oh, that sound is associated with Mars nakshatras. So it's very
Interesting.
intentional. It makes you think like they know what they're doing. They know the meaning, right? Like it's so blatant, right?
Yeah. They're definitely utilizing these symbols.
And if you want to hide something, right, you do so in plain sight. So this one, so this actually inspired this whole talk actually, because I was watching, it was blaring on a TV one day, and I was like, wait a second. It was kind of, you see this glyph, right, on this one news program that people tend to have on their TV a lot. And it's called programming for a reason, people. But basically, I would see it flashing on the bottom of the screen of this news program. And I was like, wait a second, that's the Scorpio glyph. They just reversed it. And
Yeah, look
also,
at
it
that.
reminded me of a lifeline, right? Like a heart rate monitor in a hospital, like, doot,
There's
doot,
a lot of
doot.
that. There's a lot of that.
We see this. So that's kind of what came to my mind. I was like, okay, they make it look like a heart rate monitor. Flip it around, it's the glyph of Scorpio, which is kind of
Power.
supposed to be the tail of the scorpion. Scorpions, by the way, are cannibalistic, kind of antisocial creatures. But Scorpio is the sign that rules sex, death, taxes,
Power.
secrecy, power. Yeah, right. And this is a very powerful company. And they're very much using this because a lot of what this particular image is broadcasted with is imagery that is trying to put people in a fearful state, in a state of panic, a state of urgency, a state of life or death. Because you don't see, often on the news them reporting about some great news, great thing that happened, some very inspiring thing, that might be sprinkled in. But for the most part, it's, you know, famines, plagues, war,
We're always being tested.
violence.
We're always being tested. That's what it is. It's this
And
reality.
and
Here's reality.
uh here you see let me go
Most
back.
trusted name in the news, it said.
That is their slogan. I put this in because I just found it comical. And then this alert, it's kind of like alert, alert. You get these, some people can get these alerts on their phone, which is interesting. And I'm not making any commentary about real
Interesting
or
alert.
fake. I'm just saying to observe, knowing what Scorpio really represents, and that it's manipulative energy in its lower form, but it's kind of known for that, right? And I
Mhm.
found this ad for this particular company. I'll move our faces so you can kind of see the whole thing. But it was weird. It was kind of like, I guess this came out in 2017. It was an ad campaign for them. It says, "This is what the corrupt media shows to the world, and the world believes that the fish drowns. The brave eagle rescued the fish from drowning." So this was like a campaign, I guess, to kind of fight this idea that there's fake news. They were trying to be
Ah,
like, oh, it's like kind of like making fun of like, wow, people will watch the news and will show this great thing, and then they won't take it seriously. And yeah, like you said, ironically, it's the most trusted, and then, that's questionable nowadays. It might have been the most trusted.
and then when you just think about like what you know about birds and then like the nature of eagles
And
and
eagles are the symbol of
the-
Scorpio,
right, and
the
it's
most
they're so
ancient.
overused for corporations and companies as a symbol of power and and they don't put the word deceptive, they put corrupt as if to really negate what the claims against such corporations are. And there's the Scorpio at the bottom, the CNN, which I believe was purchased by BlackRock. I was looking at some of those symbols and I saw some article on it, or at least has BlackRock owns.
Yeah, and it's conveyed as this, I believe it came to notoriety because it was the first 24-hour news. So it's this like lifeline, if you will. And I think that's why they make it almost look like this like heart rate monitor. Like you need to be plugged into it or you'll perish because, the world's scary and you need to be
And
inundated with fear.
and look how they're framing it too. Like they're even telling you it's a screen within a screen.
Mm.
They're even framing it for you that it's an alternate reality that they want you to enter into. That's not nature. That eagle doesn't represent nature. It's a picture in front of a natural setting. It's actually three ways removed from reality. We're looking at the screen. It is a screen of nature. Obviously, nature doesn't uproot itself on a computer screen, and and then there's a picture in that frame of nature. So look
Yeah.
at how removed this is. They're telling you, they're letting you know how removed they are.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Yeah. This was when I saw that, it was like, whoa, I couldn't unsee it kind of thing. And that's the practice that we're inviting everyone into here. Oops. I'm trying to move where our faces are so it's not blocking the imagery. So away from Mars and Scorpio into Venus, into the divine feminine, right? Literally, this razor company uses just Venus and, this kind of watery motif, Venus being a wet and is it wet and warm Venus? A wet,
I
warm planet? Or is it wet and cold?
think it's wet and cold, moist,
Okay.
moist and cold. I
Okay.
think.
And here we have these feminine products, of course, with the moon
Look at the moon hiding
imposed.
there. That's crazy. Behind the wall.
Yeah, they're kind of hiding it, yeah. And this is significant because it's the Vesica Pisces, which it's kind of misplaced in this little statue here, but it's supposed to really represent the female opening, right? It's used for the symbol of Pisces, right? It's like parts of it are extracted to create the glyph of Pisces, which is a feminine water planet of primordial, you know, source consciousness, if you will, right? It's like just the unity of us all. But they use it. It's a very sacred symbol. They use it though for Mastercard. They use it for
Which is two
Chanel.
suns, by the way, also. If you look at MasterCard, it's
Yeah.
two suns, a
Yeah, it's almost
yellow.
like an eclipse happening.
Or about to happen.
About to
Yeah.
happen. Yeah, like it's an eclipse
Or
about to happen.
past or past. Yeah, either way, right.
So you're getting like eclipsed by this image. And this is, on many credit cards people are swiping. Then we have the Chanel with here we go, the Vesica Pisces.
The
And interestingly, uh what is that man's name? I'm blanking. Who talks about
Tazarian, Michael Tazarian, he does talk about canal, the
he
moon, the
talk
water.
he talks about Chanel and he mentioned that On is
Yeah,
the
goddess.
goddess of the heavens.
Right, right.
So some of the ads you'll see the "an" will be emphasized. And then we also see number 5. Again, like I said,
Yeah.
it's that number of spiritual transcendence. But of course, it's to sell you perfume. Interestingly, too, this ad struck me, the one eye is covered. We don't have to go into into that. But look, this one as well. I was like, wow, okay, that's something. I
Yeah,
mean,
both of them are only showing one's showing the
yes.
right eye in one picture and then the left eye in the other. And then there's a third eye in between. They're creating a third eye.
Yes, in this mirror.
Interesting.
Do you want to talk on the covered eye?
Uh, no, I mean, it's been
No.
overdone. We don't need to go.
People who know
The
what
mythology of Osiris, and Set,
well,
right?
there's certain groups that utilize this symbol covering the eye. You see it a lot in pop stars or on like CD covers or this is a common thing used by groups that are into certain forms of control. Let's just say. Now here, keeping with the kind of Pisces theme, this is not actually a glyph, but this is a logo here for a company called Hurley, and they are a surf company. But they literally just co-opted the Pisces glyph, which is
Pretty
pictured
much.
here, and they took the line out and they put it in a circle, which is kind of interesting. And yeah, it's all over their ads of the ocean and Pisces representing very much the ocean and the waters of the collective unconscious. Finally, we have Neptune, or at least the ones I'll be talking about. We have Neptune, and I see this in the Starbucks. They're using this mermaid. She's even kind of the way her legs are kind of. First of all, mermaids that I understood had one fin, but they've like
Mhm.
split her fins to create this almost like matches the trident, right?
Mhm.
And if you flip her, though, this is kind of controversial, but if you flip her, we see this figure, which is sometimes associated with the devil card or the sign Capricorn. In Tarot uses it as the sign for Capricorn, right? Devil card. And
Capricorn.
so you get this kind of combining of Neptune, illusion, delusion, and then Capricorn, like work. So I find that interesting because Starbucks is like what people feel like they're kind of addicted to it, right? It's like Neptune's addictions
Mm.
and the things that we like feel like we need and the things that numb us out. And then, Capricorn is like labor, work, get shit done, money, right? They even make it green to invoke like money, prosperity. So it's kind of interesting that this is one of the most common logos you might just see anywhere driving. You'll see this at least a dozen times, driving any
And
10 miles.
the stars are over that, even in the name star. And then in addition, the horns on top of it.
Starbucks too, like a dollar, like currency.
Hmm. And yeah, that's the Baphomet symbol created by Eliphas Levi, the 19th century mage. Um,
It looks like the
inspired.
magician, right? Because he's got one hand in the above and one hand in the below.
It was a symbol he incorporated a lot of the ancient Egyptian mythology into and created like a modern symbol to be utilized in modern forms of magic.
Mario, do you want
Safe.
to talk on this one?
There's a safe way. Can you see the? I mean, it can look like a path. Obviously, the Cancer symbol is right there, looking very similar to those two little red, kind of almost like minnows. But and then the name that we associate with that symbol, whoever named that particular business knew what they were doing along with that symbol. Who doesn't want to go to a place to purchase things called Safe Way? I mean, just pronouncing it right. Safe. It's the way,
Well, it's
right?
nurturance too. Cancer's the stomach. It's where you can get your nurturance to feel
Yeah.
comforted by your mommy. But it's interesting because they made it red, right? I mean, I found this Cancer logo in red, but you don't
Realized it, right? Grounded it.
you don't typically see Cancer as like a red color.
Mm-mm. Yeah, that's not the color usually associated with it, but apparently we see that here. And then
You made a point, Mario, once that the grocery stores have a certain type of energetic to them. We were in a
definitely,
grocery store once. You were like, people are like kind of on edge, and also there's a lot of sexual energy in grocery store.
yeah, it's frenetic energy, right? I mean, it's you're coming to appease your appetite. Oh, I'm gonna get this, right? But what kind of appetite is that, right? There's layers of appetites, right? Besides just and food is often sexualized, right, as some substitute, for sexual impulses and desires. So of course it's an interplay, it's an intersection of those energies always, in
Hmm.
every way. It's so funny.
Yeah, no,
And
it's true. And in the branding of a lot of foods, it'll be like words like decadent or moist or like, like
right,
words that could be overlaid or like
right.
smooth,
They're
like
describing the quality,
sensual,
the sensual, features of eating, right? And
spicy, all those words kind of overlay between food and sex.
yeah, yeah.
All right, this is a fun one. These are cars. Most of us, whoops, shoot. Most of us, sorry, I'm just trying to move our faces. Most of us know the Dodge Ram, but there was a Dodge Aries.
It's crazy. So Ram this is fascinating. So and Cesarian pointed this out. I'm giving Cesarian a lot of credit here for his famous presentation in the 2000s. But Ram backwards is Mar, and just add the S and you have
Mm,
Mars, right? And so they know what they're doing. They're telling you. It's obviously the symbol that rules Mars, and then the sign Aries. Can you get any more blatant? And
can't
then,
get
as
any
you were
more.
pointing out, Molly, like Aries is the first, right? It's the sign that's the first. So nobody
Right.
has beaten this car.
Nobody's
Aries.
beating it. It's fast. It's the first. No one's beating it. Like it's just funny. When I found the print copy, I was like, okay, they they know it's like they're giving these cards a personality in this way, using these archetypes.
right? Well, cars are living beings, metal breathes, we definitely have they're mercurial beings, right? They get us from A to B, right? Or X to Y.
Yeah. Speaking of mercurial, this one's the Gemini, and
Shit.
forget who came up with this one. Was it? It might have also been Dodge. I
Yeah, I don't know.
forget, but it says Gemini diesel when you drive a lot. And it has like all these different images. The right car for your family, your fleet, for your money. So they're bringing in that it's three, right? They have three examples: your family, your fleet, your money.
Mhm. Three
And it's the
pictures.
commerce, it's the travel, and Gemini's known as this
Red.
buzzy, like all over the place sign.
Red active the mind, right? The color. Well, red, that would be more green actually to activate the mind, but
And
still
the
it's red.
third house is local travel, our local environment. Now this car, very smooth and rounded, kind of like a jelly bean car. It's the Ford Taurus, and their ad was really fascinating. Beautiful
Beautiful.
curves are what
Are what?
Taurus is all about.
What rules Taurus? Venus, right? And what rules the feminine? The form of the feminine, it's curvature, it's sinuosity, right? Wow.
Definitely.
They're just right on. I like
Yeah.
the arrow too. The arrow is like the path, right? The path they're taking you on. It's curvaceous. It's like the car. You know?
It's a curvaceous car,
We
yeah.
could we could do commercials for the for these
We
cars.
could. It's a fun way though to learn astrology,
Mhm.
right? It's teaching us
Right,
astrology.
right.
Then this one is an old car, the Aries and the
That's right.
Gemini, they're older too. The Scorpio, like, we all know there's Mercury as a brand, there's Saturn, there's all sorts of like planetary car associations, but these sign ones were new to me because I don't know that a Ford Scorpio exists nowadays. But the ad for this was
No,
interesting.
it was only for a certain time. Very
The
mysterious
80s,
car.
right? It looks super
Only
80s.
during the 80s.
And the
Fascinating.
ad is like all black and it's like it runs the Black Forest, but it's also nice to people. Scorpio. Like they're appealing to like some energy.
A car
Mysterious.
that goes into the underworld, right?
Totally. Yeah, mysterious, but
Takes
it's
you
nice
into
to
the
people.
yeah, that's hilarious. Travel into the underworld.
And back. All right, so that brings us then into to some of these, Mario, you want to talk on?
So here we go. We got the cross of matters. As me and Molly spoke about in the beginning, there's a couple like really significant symbols that are used to create the planetary glyphs, and one of the big ones is the X, the cross of matter. And so the Luxor, we didn't show well, you can see the pyramid in the lower symbol, but the symbol in the American Egypt, right, Las Vegas, right, where you have the pyramid, also on the same latitudinal parallel as the pyramids in Egypt, in Africa. And in the name, you have the Luxor. The Lu and the R definitely have some meanings there, but the X right there in the middle, spiritualizing a form of death, the cross, transcendence. But the cross is usually associated with matter. In this case, we have it on top of the pyramid. If you go to Vegas, you see there's a constant light on top of the pyramid that actually attracts a lot of crows and birds. And there's definitely been some dark stories about the Luxor. I think someone jumped off to their death
Hmm.
on the Luxor. Rumors of
Interesting.
haunted rooms or haunted incidents there. Definitely some metaphysical stuff. Apparently, I learned recently that um, they were supposed to build two of the what is it, the Sphinx or the lion and the body form there. It's not exactly what we always think it is, but they were supposed to build two of those kind of animal sphinxes going in two different directions, but they only built one. Supposedly, the person who the architects said to build two to protect the Luxor, to protect that building, that sacred shape. And they also wanted them to put like an eye or just a top stone, something on the top, a headstone on it. They didn't do neither, so it's very interesting. But again, that's kind of off. And then the Arco Tazari mentioned this in his presentation. At the end, and you have Archon, right? The Archonic, right? The beings that first came onto this plane and either created our
Interesting.
vehicles or just some kind of spiritual beings. And
And
then the red,
okra backwards,
we could do
which
that all day.
which is
We
a
could go over
vegetable.
turn on the presentation again and like just go everything, just do the not even backwards, right? But just like the respellings, like what is it? The
Anagram.
anagram. Yeah, the anagrams of what
Yeah,
uh,
which we see happening so much in these.
everywhere. It's happening right now.
Oh
Something
my
that
God.
just came out the other day.
Something
Is you can all
something
see
called
very clearly.
something that's moronic.
Right. But by the way, that's also a star in the constellations. That's a very particular star.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So anyway, so that red square, it's a square. There's a cross in the middle. It's red. We're very familiar with that symbolism. And then we move on below to another gas, right, that supplies the mercurial world, that helps it, establish its commerce, right? This is where you stop and you get the transcendence you need, right? The double X, the double cross.
And
There's
it's
a
three
double cross.
lines. It's three lines in
Yes,
the thing.
yes, it is. It is three lines. And then you have E in front of it. And I'll be getting into that when we start doing the crypto symbols. But the E is significant, as Molly's been propounding throughout the presentation. The five, the number five, which is very prevalent in these symbols. E is the fifth letter of the alphabet. So you have
Mhm.
E on the front of a lot of these names of products and symbols and logos and companies and corporations. Think about it in corporations: E-Trade, eBay. There's just so many. I can't even
E is
remember
just
all.
the name of a magazine, or it's a
Right,
channel
right.
too. It's like E News, E.
And
It's
then
very, it's like a gossipy kind of channel.
I'm trying to think of one that's related to computer. Intel, big computer company. Yeah, there's so much, but yeah, we'll stop there as far as.
Ethereum, as we were talking about.
Yeah,
Speaking
so
of
we'll get
currency.
to that in a minute. Molly's going to go over these very important alchemical symbols that we've had for a long time that are associated with astrology as well.
Yes, here we see three, right? Money comes in, there's paper too, but in terms of coins, which are more ancient, there's the bronze, silver, and gold coins. Now, bronze is associated with, it's the metal of earth, silver with the moon, and then gold with the sun. And this symbol we all are so familiar with, though obviously we're kind of missing part of one of the letters here. It's really two letters, This in this particular glyph you don't see the full I, but typically you'll see it written as a S with an I through it. And as Cesarian points out, this is Isis. This
Yeah, the two
symbol,
lines and the two S's.
it's an I and an S. Yeah, there's two lines,
Double S.
two S's. And it's a serpent with two rods. And it's the goddess of magic and life. And it's our money, it's our currency.
And S is a very powerful word because it's the word for sex. And even in its phoneme, even in the pronunciation, this in ancient languages is very, very important, and is even almost like spelled out as a phoneme, S in some of the
It's
ancient
the snake, right? It's the slither of the snakes.
or serpent beings, or whatever kind of ancient kind of Sumerian connection we want to make with that, or even prior. So I wanted to introduce the cryptocurrency symbols to what we're conveying today. I don't know that too many have done that. What Molly just put in front of you guys are some of the first cryptocurrency symbols that came out maybe 5, 10 years ago when crypto digital currencies were coming out. Just kind of just look at that and let that kind of graze over you, kind of like as a type of neutrinos coming through you and attempting to message you, attempting to tell you something. A lot of different symbols. You got the wavy lines of Aquarius in there. You got the EOS symbol that kind of looks like an Orion Nebula. I have that on the next screen. You have a star incorporated with a bunch of circles there in
You have
the
the S.
Cardano symbol. You have a bunch of M's. You have um, S's. You have B's for different types of Bitcoin. There's some D's. There's and keep in mind that cryptocurrencies are the symbols, the logos for these cryptocurrencies. Keep in mind that they are simplified digital expressions, simplified JPEGs, images, which upon a larger look or even alternative symbols reveals a lot more. These are way more fragmented than the other symbols we've been showing you. And in other words, like to investigate the meaning of these, you have to look at multiple different symbols of a particular coin to start even getting out the layers of what they're attempting to represent or even hiding in their symbology. It's quite fascinating. But yeah, just I'm not going to go over every one, but just let that kind of, yeah. So this next one, so this is fascinating to me because these were some of the most well-known initial cryptocurrencies. We have Bitcoin on the left with the B. On the top, we have Ethereum. That's one of the symbolic markers of Ethereum. And on the right, we have Litecoin. Below Ethereum, we have EOS. And so I'm going to go over each one. So for Bitcoin, if you look at it, again, we have like a money symbol. This one's a a different variation of its symbol, but I chose this one for a particular reason. You have the two eyes, as Molly was discussing, the rods of the serpent. You can look at it. Also, the B, obviously, it's the B for Bitcoin, but look at it a little deeper and you can see a 1 and a 3 for 13, right? The 13th sign, the 13th, gate, right? The symbolism is used everywhere. The 76 gas station adds up to 13. Another transitory number, another number of transition of creating a new reality, in this case, a digital reality. And so that's the Bitcoin symbol, or one variation of it. On top, we have Ethereum. Ethereum, ether, air, right? The fifth element. Ether was actually removed from our consciousness. It's very important in alchemy and in astrology as well. And here we have two pyramids you could see, mirroring pyramids. And then it looks like a diamond. You could also just look at it as a diamond shape. Sometimes full moons are said to be diamonds sparkling in the sky. Many layers of symbolism for ether.
I see this reminds me of just the upward facing triangle, which is the alchemical symbol for the element air in astrology, with
Yeah,
almost
there we
like
go,
a
another layer there.
reflection. It has like a reflection. It's like I see like the upward triangle with like a mirrored image below.
Yeah. The one on the furthest right is Litecoin. That's one of the Litecoin images. I chose that one because it had this appearance of almost lightning all around it, like light, like speed of light, right, flashing from it. And it really incorporates the concept I wanted to convey, which is spirit coming into matter, or rather, spirit coming into digitization. So the spirit coming into the digital, or the taking of the spirit. Of lightning is symbolic of the spirit, and there it's coming into digital, into the digital. So it's a digitization of spirit, right? Cryptocurrencies. Now we're putting our energies, our focus, our spiritual energy into these digital realities. And this is the currency of that digital reality.
Fascinating.
And then you look at the L, right? And you have the line through it, which is the lightning coming through, the lightening, right? And there it's associated with silver, Quicksilver, look at the color of it. And how has it been characterized in terms of the symbols of currency? Bitcoin is the gold, to Litecoin silver. At least that was some of the talk initially. Now we don't hear too much talk about Litecoin. It served its purpose as the alchemical transformation of spirit into digitization.
A flash of light, a flash of lightning.
Below Ethereum, we have, this is Eos. Now in mythology, Eos is one of the titans, one of the gods, right? And so we don't see the EOS, but this is one of the original cryptocurrencies, or a little later. And I wanted to show two symbols along with it. One, the Orion symbol, which is the Orion Nebula, the constellation in our sky. And on the right-hand side is a common symbol used in magic. It's very common now, actually. Like, it's very prevalent. It's actually an Orion Nebula, but it's used in a dark way. It's used definitely to convey, more darker forms of religious archetypes.
It reminds me of the dark crystal.
The crystal, the symbol.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
could be like a dark
kinda,
crystal.
it could be like the shard to put on, to complete the magic of. Well, it was dark crystals, man. There's so much layers to that. We could do a video on that alone, on the dark crystal, with the Saturnian and Jupiterian beings, right, and the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter.
So much in that film.
Okay, we can go to the next.
All right, what brings us here? Where are
So
we
this
now?
brings us to the meta, right? Now, this is not the centralized meta that Fakebook has just related its new name about. This is the decentralized form of it, as so expressed in cryptocurrency. Apparently now there's these online games where you can use coins to purchase land, right? And this is digital land, of course. So this verse, this alternate verse, this digital verse, is now being created and bought and sold. And these are the coins to buy and sell them. So this is the next layer, the next dimension, the next kind of illusion, the next screen in the next part of the maze that we're being sent into to lose ourselves, right?
I don't know anything about this. I
In our
see
home,
the DNA thing is
in
kind of
our
cool.
homebound Oculus, right? Living in these new worlds. Yeah, and the good catches. Yeah, just go ahead for now, like Molly. Just look at these symbols.
Brain stems.
And
There's
let
a
these
bunch of
symbols
brain
talk to you.
stems.
Let them communicate to you. Brain stems. You're talking
Hexagrams.
about DNA. DNA is a very prevalent symbol in everything we've seen. And,
Yeah. Oh my God. There's at least 3 right here that are supposed to look like a helix. Then we
right.
have the hexagram appears a lot. What do you make of the hexagram?
Well, the hexagram is the building blocks of the blockchain, right? It's also the square, the square of Saturn, right? The hexagram
The
supposed
worker
to
bees.
Saturn.
The
The
worker bees.
physical world, right? The squares of the physical world, the blocks being set up by the worker bees of the world, right?
This one looks like a,
And
oh, it is Atari. I was like, wait, that looks like
that's
a
an
video
Atari
game.
symbol, it's an Atari coin. And there's not too many here, but in general, there's a lot of cryptocurrencies that just have the block for the blockchain, just squares everywhere.
Wow, and then
Ethereum doesn't have the
Prometheus.
squares.
Prometheus is the
Prometheus,
god
right? Still the
who brought the
fire,
fire from the gods.
heavens. Usually a lower kind of symbolism. But yeah, just look at the images and colors. There's so much here. I'm not going to go over each one.
Sun with the sunglasses.
That's an
Just
interesting one.
goofy.
Preparing for its eclipse. Yeah, there's just so much. I mean, the P on the bottom in black could be almost like a plutonic symbol. The unicorn is a prevalent symbol in mythology, and also in alchemy. It's a really important symbol.
I think that was one of the original symbols for Cancer, the unicorn.
Yeah. I think that's what I heard too.
The S's, there's a lot of S's.
They're everywhere. There's an X's are there too.
V's.
The chains, you can see the chains on that left one right there. Yeah.
So interesting when you think about, yeah, that chain and how they're trying to make it like DNA, like it it feels like,
It is
yeah,
the DNA. It's the DNA of the digitiverse or the metaverse,
it's kind of
digiverse.
creepy.
Illusions within illusions within illusions. You know, how deep can they pull us in, can engross us into these layers of screens, right? Being behind the screen, what are the consequences of being behind these screens for too long? Okay, we can go to the next. So these are some of the major metaverse coins, and you could buy these as cryptocurrencies. Um, there's two of them on there that I don't remember the names to. I'm just seeing if I wrote them down. I'll just go over the prevalent ones that I'm really aware of for now. So on the left, you have Decentraland. Fascinating. Just think of the name, right? It's a land, right? Decentra, which means a
With two
decentralized
suns.
land. Two pyramids, two suns. So very Geminian symbolism, very Gemini, right? In this time of the North Node in Gemini, which is switching and or shifting to different North Node. You'll notice too that the two suns, one is smaller than the other, and it's in reverse. The pyramid, the larger pyramid has the smaller sun, and the smaller pyramid has the larger sun. Did I say that correctly? Invert that. And there's different layers. Like if you look, there's 3 layers of reality on the bottom, as Molly was pointing out, the importance of threes. It's
Mhm.
also red and orange. Also, Decentraland is an actual game where you can go on and you could purchase land. So it is
Weird.
a verse in itself. Yeah, you
Wait,
could.
in real life or in this metaverse?
It's great asking these questions, right? So in real life, you can get on your computer, you know, send your currency through to an exchange, transfer that exchange to a wallet, and this is all digital forms. This is all once your money's converted from your bank account, your digital bank account, all converted to a wallet. This is an online digital wallet, and then you could purchase, or rather, purchase the coins on an exchange, and then send it to a wallet to send it to OpenSea or some kind of site, so you could purchase. OpenSea, by the way, is the name of one exchange, right? OpenSea, for
Hmm.
currency to come in, right? In order to purchase land. And if you go on OpenSea's website, you'll see there's land for purchase, like images of land. And so this is land that you can buy on these little digital verses, and you could put anything you want. Once you buy that land, you could put anything you want. You and I could advertise our astrology. I could buy a plot of land in the metaverse, and we could advertise
You
our
put like a
reading.
billboard up on it. That's
Right,
hilarious.
right, exactly.
Oh
Yeah, I've
my
been
God.
thinking about
Have you read
it.
Snow Crash? I feel like this is what the book Snow Crash really gets into, and it predicted
Oh
this.
yeah,
It was written in the
oh yeah,
80s, but
oh yeah.
brilliant. I mean, what an astute author, Neil Stevenson. To really like, and it's funny. It's actually a very funny cyberpunk sci-fi book.
What's
Got a great sense of humor.
it's all Blade, it's all Philip K. Dick, his work, all that in the early 80s was,
Would you
sharing
say
all.
that sci-fi authors, sorry to interrupt, would you say sci-fi authors are like sort of like seers in a way?
No, no, they're the fomenters of this false reality.
Oh, they're the script writers in a way.
Yes, yes, they're the ones that have created this false illusionary reality, this Neptunian deceptions. They're the ones that have built all these screens, space being the
Mhm.
first and the biggest one. I mean, everyone's
Mhm.
so consumed by the idea of the outer world. They consumed our imagination once they gave us the concept of outer space, because then it limited us from seeking the inner space, from wanting to go there. I mean, science
Mhm.
fiction is what rules this verse.
Right, where we
This
become alien
digiverse.
to our own bodies.
Right, and that's what's what they want. They want us to become alien to our own bodies and sit around all day on an Oculus, or their next version of what an
Mhm.
Oculus is. And it's fascinating. Okay, so now let's move to. I think I said all I want to about Decentraland. Why did you go back? I
Oh,
have much more.
I'm sorry. I thought we went over them all.
No, no, no. There's much
Forgive
more to
me.
go over.
Forgive me. I forgot
Okay,
we didn't talk about the llama or the samba.
so I think it's Solarium on the bottom, um, and that has an interesting name. I think it's Solarium, Sol Square. But I'll go over. I got to go over the sandbox. So Sandbox is another world where you could buy land, digital land on. Just the title itself. See, sand is something that has no beginning and no end when you think about sand.
The
There's a
sands
great,
of time, right?
there's a great,
Eternal.
oh, right, right. And that's very symbolic. When you use it to measure time, you have the little, what do you call those? The measures, right? For like a certain amount of time and you turn it into second.
Hourglass.
Yeah, hourglass. And I mean, also consider there's a story by Jorge Luis Borges, one of the great writers of paradox, one of the great meta writers, and it's called the Book of Sand. It's one of his later stories, so it's much easier to read. And in the Book of Sand, there's a book which has no beginning and no end. Every time you open the book, you open up a page and you read the page, and you close the book and you can never find that page again. And there's
Really?
new pages every time you open up the book, and you can never get to the beginning of the book because there's always new pages forming. it's,
Fascinating.
it's it's so fascinating because in the story it's acknowledged as some kind of like artifact of hell, like it's like something that doesn't end, something that really attempts to encompass and circle the idea of infinity.
Yeah, or
uh
like a purgatory.
rather it being a purgatory, right? Something that never ends. And so sandbox in itself is a great title. And then box, here we go again with the squares and the boxes, right? So here you are boxed in this new verse. And then
Mm.
going down,
And
we have another.
fragmented. You're boxed in and you're fragmented. Just the
That's
thought.
what I was gonna. That's exactly what I was gonna get to. Is in, so I think it's selenarium. I have to look it up again. But in this metaverse coin, you have the box, the of reality, right? The physical structure, the Saturnian grounded structure of reality coming apart piecemeal into smaller little digibyte squares, coming apart, being fragmented, right? And is that not our consciousness presently being fragmented into these alternate screens of these attempts to capture our imagination in these other realities? Centralized, decentralized, or otherwise, they're all screens. They're all illusions of Neptune, right?
Mm.
The Tellai's vision has reached its maximum input as a, and then right, the box symbolism. Think of a Hellraiser cube, right? I mean, it's a dimensional vortex. It's the hexagon. It's like in the movie
Mhm.
Interstellar, right? It's the whole, they're attempting to relocate the spirit outside of our own bodies.
Mm.
To where are they trying to trap us? In the cube? In what cube? What square of reality, right? I mean, this, yeah, you can't make this shit up. I mean, this just,
What's the llama?
the llama is another coin. I'm not remembering. I think the name started with a U. But the symbolism of the llama, I mean, we could just carry forth with it. Now, first off, it's an animal that's looking at us, right? It's not looking somewhere else. It's not, look at the direction. It's mirrored. We're looking into a mirror. What is it saying about us? Are we the animal? And then it has glasses on it, so it's anthropomorphized. It's an anthropomorphication of an animalistic nature, and it's looking back at us. I mean, we could just interpret these symbols as they show up.
It's
That's
like
that's what I'm seeing.
The Monopoly monocle too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's not. It's the ancient pair of just one. What were those? Were they like a magnifying glasses, or
A
what were they?
monocle. They're called a monocle.
But is it magnifying what someone sees,
Yeah,
or
it's
or is it
magnifying.
looking? Yeah, so it's another fact. I mean, in art, you have that motif of, Frida Kahlo and like her paintings. Like if you look at her paintings really carefully, she's painting herself, looking back at herself, painting as if in a mirror. And so it's a painting of a
Mm,
reflection, not her.
mm,
And so you always have these mirrored realities playing back and forth when you have an image looking back at you, attempting to mirror you into its image. It's just, I mean, it's a very creative expression of this reality they're attempting to enlist us in.
right. And you bring up a great point because it's like the internet, first it was print copy ads and then television, now the internet. And I think the amount, I forget the exact number, but the number of images a person consumes in a typical day is like way more than our brains, our brains
Oh, yeah,
haven't
our
evolved
bandwidth is
for
so
that.
small. Yeah, our
Right.
bandwidth
So
is
we're
really
like inundated in a way.
inundated, overwhelmed, and it gets processed where in sleep, where there's more and more. If we have our Wi-Fi on, how many more images are being transferred in, you know?
Right. So that being said, kind of I guess a takeaway to this whole talk is to open your eyes or open your third eye to see these things through a different lens. Because it's kind of like once you see it, you can't unsee it. So it's just altering your mode of perception so that you're no longer like kind of being hypnotized in a way, but you have the Jedi mind tricks to see through it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, what is the key to living this present life? It is to see and find what's real. And what a challenge we have to look beyond the layers and layers of illusions.
Mm. Well, thank you.
That's great.
I think that's kind of all. We tried to keep this at a shorter part, but we might do a part two if it really is compelling to some people. We're open to different topics, and yeah, decoding this stuff is really fun. This has been one of the most fun things I could prep because yeah, it's like a puzzle. It's like putting together all the pieces of the puzzle and just adds a depth of even your understanding of astrology. So that being said, we have tons of other videos astrologically related and otherwise on our channel, and we're open to questions, comments, and readings, both Mario and myself. Any closing thoughts, Mario?
No, that's about it. Thanks everyone, and hope you enjoyed. And maybe we'll do a part two if we're so inspired, and if you